It has been 7 months since the MLS season started, and already we are at the end. The MLS regular season ended last weekend, and it's time now to look back at the season that was. Beginning of the year, I made a preview video for the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference of the MLS, and predicted of how both would end up. And today, on DOOP by the River, we are going to look back at both of those predictions. Some good, some bad. Hopefully I make you laugh. But sit back and stay there because we're going to start off today with El Parcero Phillies 2019-2020 MLS Eastern Conference season preview. And you don't want to miss it. Done! And that is right, everyone. Welcome to DOOP by the River, the show where we follow everything Philadelphia Union with me, El Parcero Philly. And if this is the first time you're tuning into DOOP by the River, if you're returning back, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. But please, we are trying to grow this channel right here. We are only 4 subscribers away now to our goal of 100 subscribers. And guys, I only have you guys to thank. But the job is not done. Please, help me get to their goal of 100 subscribers by subscribing, hitting the bell button for notifications, as well as sharing this video on any social media platform you use, text, email, whatever you gotta do. Let's get to 100. Let's get it. And alright guys, usually DOOP by the River is everything Philadelphia Union, but let's take it to a broader viewership and let's talk about the MLS. Beginning of the year, I made a season preview for both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference teams. And it's so funny looking back 7 months ago, around the time when I just restarted this YouTube channel, and it's crazy to see how far I have come along. You know, guys, it's always important when you're trying to reach your goals, when you're trying to make some progress, just to look back and just seeing my growth throughout the past couple months. Man, guys, I don't have enough time to, you know, kind of rejoice my progression. Just know that I'm grinding at this and I'm going to continue getting better. I love the progress that I made, and I also love the relationships I've made over the past 6 months. Whether it be meeting guys like the Soccer Cooligans, Men in Blazer, Joe Tanzi, or Adam Kahn, or even meeting some of the great fans I've met thus far, like Jeff Mitchell, Matt Kandesic, Adam Booth, Paul Katrina, Gigio. Like, the different relationships I have made over the past 6-7 months have made this ride even more fun. And if you're not sold on me just yet, just stay there, because I promise you, you will be soon enough. One thing I will say about the MLS this season is the growth that it was the growth that we continuously see, and this season was another step. The quality on the pitches throughout the MLS year by year is getting better, and my God, the top of the MLS is very difficult. My Philadelphia Union actually made some moves, and there was a couple surprises that I was surprised by in the Eastern Conference that we got to get to. Let's just dive right in, looking back to the episode of my preview of the Eastern Conference. When we look at the Eastern Conference, we can tell there has been a decline from last season. There's been some star players that have left the league from this conference, and I generally wouldn't be surprised if the Eastern Conference is tighter than any year we've ever seen. Now, I wouldn't say that the quality of the Eastern Conference took a step back, but certainly it wasn't as tight as it was last season. I definitely think the quality got a little bit better. Still, the Eastern Conference quality is not better than the Western Conference, in my honest opinion. You remember in 2018 how close the top of the Eastern Conference was? New York Red Bull and Atlanta United went back and forth near the end of the year to try to get not only first place in the East, but also the Supporter Shield. New York wound up winning that by just 2 points. Now, if you look at this season, you know, this point separating NYCFC and Atlanta is only 6 points. Definitely there's not a huge bridge like there was in 2018. Start off with last place. And we have Orlando City SC. Now, obviously the joke was on me, as I definitely maybe shouldn't have put Orlando at the bottom. They did have some quality, but still were not good enough to make the playoffs, as I generally predicted. And I gotta give a quick shout out to my boy El Parcero Nico down in Orlando, because my man has been going through it with this team, and the fans, you know, still are hurting. And that's no knock on your Orlando City SC fans. The knock is on your front office, who I have questioned since the inception of you guys. And again, the constant dysfunction with the Orlando City front office is continuously prevalent to see. This year was no different. Obviously, Orlando made headline news 2 weeks ago with the signing of Portuguese international Nani, which was a great sale if you want to sell tickets to Manchester United fans in your area. We're talking about a declining 32-year-old Nani.
And I know in the MLS, teams are starting to steer away from signing those older, declining European stars. But obviously, last season we saw that with Wayne Rooney, it can work. Unfortunately, though, Nani has never demonstrated the leadership skills that Wayne Rooney has. The way these aging European stars can come here and help your club is with their leadership and experience. I'm not sure if Nani can help this club at all.
After 1 year of the Nani experiment in Orlando City, my perception still has not changed. I definitely think that, Nani was not the right move for Orlando City, and I compared him to Wayne Rooney in the beginning of the season. And that's because in today's MLS, when the DP position is kind of not thought of in the same way, there's the thought of, having to get a aging European star to bring to your team to try to bring tickets down. It's kind of dying down a little bit. Get yourself a guy like Wayne Rooney, who in his first season definitely changed the culture. Now, Nani, I don't think changed the culture, as Orlando City still missed the playoffs. If you want to do a little comparison, Nani only scored 8 goals and 4 assists, while Wayne Rooney scored 12 goals and 6 assists. Now, although Nani did that in 17 matches, while Wayne Rooney did that in 21 matches, the difference is Wayne actually made the playoffs. Nani didn't. Same old Orlando City year in and year out. Constantly being dominated by Atlanta United and just not being able to make the playoffs, despite having some talented players in their young history. The offseason is going to be another mystery for Orlando City, because what else can they possibly do? It seems like they've tried everything.
It's going to be interesting to see if James O'Connor, in his first full season as Orlando City coach, if he can get this team together and score some goals.
And now they're going to have to find another replacement for James O'Connor, who resigned at the end of the season. But let's be real, they mutually departed ways.
Unfortunately, though, I think this team is going to implode on them again. And this front office really has to get their stuff together. They are one of the main reasons why they are where they're at.
But I wasn't far off for them finishing dead last, because they only finished in 11th. Alright, in 11th place I have my first stud here, as I predicted Toronto FC to finish in 11th place.
And in 11th place, I have Toronto FC. And boy, Toronto's been falling on some hard times. It was only 2 seasons ago that we saw Toronto FC hoist the MLS Cup. And now are looking like to finish second to last place in the Eastern Conference.
And obviously, that didn't work out in my favor, because Toronto FC finished the season off 4th in the Eastern Conference, making it to the playoffs. And the big reason why I thought they would finish 11th is I thought they were going to decline and hit that wall that it seemed like they were starting to hit in the 2018 season.
Obviously, they stole headlines this offseason, allowing their stars player Sebastian Giovinco to walk and go over to play over in Saudi Arabia.
The loss of Giovinco, I thought, was going to affect this Toronto FC team.
The question this season for Toronto is how they are going to replace the production of Sebastian Giovinco. He was a crucial key to their attack. Right now have signed Alejandro Pozuelo. He's a Spanish midfielder from Genk over in Belgium.
Toronto FC found a way to replace his production by bringing in Alejandro Pozuelo from Ghent, the Spanish international midfielder, and he came into the MLS and proved that he would be a more than capable replacement for Giovinco. He dazzled and surprised us all season long, and he is one of the main contributors and reasons why Toronto FC bounced back this season. Jozy Altidore, despite not staying healthy for most of the season, contributed when he was in the matches. And of course, Jonathan Osorio and Michael Bradley continuing to carry this team.
And in 10th place, I have the Chicago Fire, who are coming off a pretty mediocre season, which came as a surprise with the talent the Chicago Fire have, with guys like Bastian Schweinsteiger, Georgi Mihailovic, Nemanja Nikolic, Diego Campos, Dax McCarty, and Alexander Katai. But it seemed like with all the talent in the midfield, they couldn't get much production in the other positions. Go figure, right?
Now in 10th place, we have another team that exceeded expectations in the Chicago Fire. I predicted them to finish in 10th place, but had a little bit of improvement this season and just missed out on the playoffs, despite being in the bottom half of the Eastern Conference all season long.
Chicago also did bring in my boy CJ Sapong to come in and help with scoring. I think CJ, if they give him a chance, will have a bounce back season.
Now, to be quite honest with you guys, the additions of 2 of the former Union players in CJ Sapong and Fabian Herbers were some key pieces for the Chicago Fire team this season. CJ in particular, like I mentioned before the season started, would have a bounce-back season this year like he always does in his career. He had 9 goals for the Chicago Fire this season.
The main issue with Chicago Fire has to be the disconnect from the from the top of the organization to the fans. They have lost their fans due in part with winning. They haven't won much. They haven't really been making playoffs. Since the 2000s, Chicago have really been irrelevant, in all honesty. Winning will cure all, but they have to find a way to connect back with the fans.
Unfortunately for the Fire, the continuous dysfunction with this franchise continues to linger on throughout the club, missing out on the playoffs yet again, despite having, to be honest with you guys, not a bad team. Now, Chicago next season will be moving into downtown Chicago, playing in Soldier Field where the Chicago Bears play, and also a potential rebranding, which we all in the MLS do not want to see. But new ownership, and we will see a lot of eyes will be faced on the Chicago Fire. Chicago's going to need to make some moves this offseason to try to build a complete team, not just a team with a stacked midfield.
And in ninth place, we have New England Revolution.
Before the season started, I was actually high on the New England Revolution,
as last year finished in 8th, and were pretty close into making the playoffs. But their flaw was their inability to win away from Foxborough. But I think the rest should be improved this season. I believe in their coach, Brad Friedel, who's going into his second season.
I actually bought into Brad Friedel. I thought that another year with New England, he would continue building this team, and they would actually be pretty good. Now, funny thing is, they were really bad with Brad Friedel, and it wasn't until they fired him and brought in the legendary Bruce Arena to Foxborough that the Revolution turned it on, and they made the playoffs for the first time. It feels like forever. With the switch of Friedel to Arena, there was an absolute culture shock within the New England Revolution. This team played absolutely different. They seemed hungry, and they seemed like they were a functioning machine. New England still had traveling woes this season, as they only won 2 matches away from home since Bruce Arena took over back in June.
Bringing in DP Carlos Gilles has Premier League and La Liga experience. He's coming over from Deportivo La Coruña.
New England also did bring in the MLS Newcomer of the Year, Carlos Gilles, who came over from Deportivo La Coruña in La Liga. In the beginning of the season, it was a slow start, not only for him, but for the rest of New England Revolution. But when Bruce Arena came in, he picked it up like the rest of the team, and he showed us how talented he really was. And he was awarded with his performance this season by winning the MLS Newcomer of the Year. Not bad, New England.
They also bought Juan Fernando Caicedo on loan from Deportivo Independiente Medellin, who I think will transition nicely to the MLS game, and I think he will be great at the number 9 for New England.
Now, I thought Juan Caicedo coming into the MLS would transition well and would adapt to this league. I felt like this league was made for him, but he really didn't have that impactful season that I expected him to have. He finished off the season with 4 goals, and we will see. He was a loanee, and I really don't think that New England will bring him back, and I see him going back to Colombia. Now, the narrative that New England has a weak ownership group, honestly, I think has changed throughout this season. Obviously, New England made some moves bringing in Carlos Gilles, and they also did bring in Gustavo Bau, who is an Argentinian forward who came over in the middle of the season from Club Tijuana in Mexico. The judge is still out, but I definitely think that he will be a contributor with New England. He just came in late in the season for New England, but the ownership group definitely changed the direction of this team throughout the season. Bringing in Bruce Arena absolutely helps things out. This is a proven guy who's won in the MLS, who knows how to build a winning team. Now, New England surprised all of us in the MLS by making the playoffs as the 7th seed this season. We will see what they will do, but it looks like New England's heading up. Good job, New England.
In 8th place this season, I have the newcomers, FC Cincinnati, who are coming over to the MLS from USL. And with them, they bring their passionate sellout fans.
Yeah, I predicted FC Cincinnati to finish in 8th place, but guys, can you honestly blame me for doing it? In today's MLS, we've seen expansion teams come into the MLS and actually produce. Thought FC Cincinnati would do the same thing too. They had the home field advantage. They had a solid roster. They just lacked the front office and the leadership to get them to where they were at. And obviously, FC Cincinnati had a pretty terrible first season in the MLS, finishing in dead last. And it seemed like from the moment they lost in Philadelphia against us on that Wednesday night, their season just went downhill. But injuries was a factor for this team. The fact that they didn't have a clear manager was a problem as well. They went into the season with Alan Coach as their manager from USL all the way up to the MLS, but the MLS just seemed too big of a league for Alan. It didn't work out. It came Ron Jans, and FC Cincinnati played a little bit better, but still was not enough for FC Cincinnati to get out of that last place spot in the East. Quite honest with you guys, I don't know where FC Cincinnati is going to go from here. This is a brand new team. There's going to be more teams coming in. Obviously, FC Cincinnati don't have the means to spend like an Atlanta United, like LA Galaxy, or NYCFC. They're playing in the Midwest, Cincinnati. You know, I definitely think that FC Cincinnati looked at the MLS and thought it was going to be easier than they thought because they grew really fast. But I think they're going to realize what we realized here in Philadelphia, that this MLS league is not easy. What they don't want to fall into is the continuous losing seasons, and they're going to lose fans this way. They're building a new stadium in Cincinnati, and I'm honestly really worried about this team. We'll see what happens, but not a good start for this FC Cincinnati franchise in the MLS.
These guys are going to bring out some sellout crowds, match in and match out in Cincinnati. But the key is, can they win away from home? And do they have enough depth to last the whole season in the MLS? I think they will knock on the door for the playoffs in their first season. It will make it very difficult. But I don't think they have what it takes to make the playoffs. And they will finish in 8th place. And now, with the 7th place team, I believe we will see Montreal Impact, who have been knocking on the door for the playoffs last year, but unfortunately just missed out. But I think this year they will have enough to make the playoffs, and will finish in 7th.
Now we got another dud here in the Montreal Impact. Now, however, the Montreal Impact did win the Canadian Championship, and it have spurts this season where they looked like a quality team, but injuries and inconsistencies killed this team, and they also went through manager change as well. They fired Remy Gardet 3 quarters into the season and replaced him with Wilmer Cabrera, my fellow Colombian, who got fired from Houston and got a job just like that with Montreal. Now this season, Montreal were in the playoff picture for most of the season, but they could not hold on to one of those final playoff spots in the Eastern Conference, and to be quite frank with you, just missed out here, as they would finish in 9th place, 4 points behind New England Revolution, who finished in 7th.
They did bring Max Urruti from Dallas, who should help change the mentality in Montreal.
Fortunately for Max Urruti, who was their best signing during the winter last season, did not really have much of an impact. He finished the season off with 1 goal and 5 assists. Not that good.
This year, they didn't change much up. Obviously, it all starts with Piatti up top with the scoring. They cannot rely on Piatti this season to be the main workhorse. They need other guys to step up.
Again, Ignacio Piatti was hampered this season with injuries, and again, nobody on this Montreal Impact team could step it up and fill his role. One of the contributors of the reason why Montreal missed out on the playoffs. And it seems like Montreal is going to try to bring back Piatti again next season. That is still not set in stone, but I think that's an honest mistake in my opinion. Going into the winter this year for Montreal, there's a lot of uncertainties, but there is a lot of talent on this team as well. Will Wilmer Cabrera stay with Montreal? Will Ignacio Piatti stay with Montreal? Who will they add in Montreal? I'm really going to be intrigued to see what happens, because Montreal, when good, is a fun team to watch. Unfortunately, they'll be watching the playoffs from their couches in Montreal.
In 6th place, I have NYCFC. Obviously, the big news is the loss of David Villa, who is headed over to Japan. The loss of David Villa is huge. Not only brought huge, better leadership, but every time he was on the pitch, he was a threat to score. And the question is, how are they going to replace that production? They weren't as strong as they were with Patrick Vieira, but still were able to remain in the 3rd seed after beating Philly in the last match of the year. But if you ask me, NYCFC is the most overrated club going into this season. A lot of people still see them as one of the Eastern Conference powerhouses, but the loss of David Villa can't be forgotten about. And Dome Torrent is on the hot seat. Can he lead this team? I don't believe in them, which is why I have them in 6th place.
God damn, I got that really wrong, didn't I, huh? Oh, man. God damn it, I hate you, NYCFC. Well, obviously, this was the pick I was absolutely wrong about this year, as NYCFC not only shocked me, but shocked the whole MLS. I really wasn't sold on Dome Torrent or this team that they assembled together in the Bronx.
In the middle of last season, we saw Patrick Vieira make the move to the league to coach Nice. In return was Dome Torrent, who was the assistant over at Man City with Pep Guardiola. We all thought that they would improve, but NYCFC actually declined.
Dome Torrent seems to be a manager, knows what he's doing. He clearly has learned from Pep Guardiola, and NYCFC streaked throughout the summer and finished in first place in the Eastern Conference this season. A lot has to do with the system they have in place. A lot has to do with the newcomers stepping it up and filling in the roles of the people that left, the players that left before them. Guys like Valentin Castellanos had a big season.
To make up for Davi Villa's production, NYCFC went out and signed a DP. Alexandru Mitrita, a 24-year-old Romanian international who came from the Romanian league. Now, Mitrita is a versatile player. He can play in many different positions like the wing, attacking midfield, and even up top. In the preseason, we did see NYCFC place him up top.
Mitrita, I was not sold on whatsoever, but he is proved to be worth every penny NYCFC threw at him. Oh man, I really want to forget about making this NYCFC part. God damn it.
In 5th place, I have DC United.
Yes, I got one right. DC United did finish in 5th. Yes!
Obviously, last year, the signing of Wayne Rooney created a huge spark within the franchise, as well as moving into their new home, Audi Field. There's a sense of excitement in DC, and there's a feeling of old DC United teams that are coming back, like the ones in the 90s and the ones in the early 2000s. But the question for me for DC is the depth. When they need guys to rest, especially like Wayne Rooney, who's going to step up? Now, it took them last year a strong second half performance to make the playoffs. Now let's see what they can do in a full season. Can they play consistent soccer from March until October?
Well, my main concern was seeing if DC United could play consistently throughout the season, and they proved that they could not. DC United had spurts of good moments and spurs of bad moments. There wasn't a consistency with this team, and it's the reason why they finished in 5th instead of maybe one of the top spots in the Eastern Conference. And obviously, the big drama throughout the second half of the season was Wayne Rooney. After the first season with Wayne Rooney went so well, it seemed like everything was butterflies and rainbows out in DC. This year, the script flipped completely. Wayne Rooney, after the season's over, will head over to Derby County to be a manager player for that club. And he has spoken about his displeasures of the American game here in the United States. And it's this relationship that started so well seems like it's going to end in an unmemorable fashion. We'll see what DC does in the playoffs, but I don't expect much.
And in 4th place, I have the Columbus Crew.
Now, obviously, this was a dud here, but, I mean, can you honestly fault me for picking Columbus to finish 4th in the Eastern Conference? Let's be real here. This has been a team that's gone through so much adversity over the past couple seasons. Obviously, in 2018, the whole moving to Austin saved the Crew. They were able to keep the team, but
as well as the bright spot was Greg Berhalter. We saw his great managing skills over the past couple seasons, and it paid off, as he is now the head manager of the U.S. national team.
They lost their manager, Greg Berhalter, to the U.S. men's national team, and he was the reason why they were so good.
And in comes proven Caleb Porter, who we saw win a MLS Cup with Porter.
Obviously, replacing Greg Berhalter with Caleb Porter, really not a downgrade whatsoever. But, however, beginning of the year, Columbus Crew dealt with injuries, player call-ups, made the job for Caleb Porter's much harder. At the end of the season, once they had everyone ready, once they had a team that was good enough to play, it was just too late and they could not make the playoffs. Finishing in 10th is a big injustice to the Columbus Crew, because definitely don't think that they are the 10th place team in the Eastern Conference. We'll see what happens next season. We'll see how they will bolster this roster in the winter, but definitely see a bounce back here next year for the Columbus Crew, similarly to what we are seeing with TFC right now.
3rd place is where I'll probably get most of my controversy, and that is because I'm putting my Philadelphia Union finishing 3rd in the Eastern Conference next season. And it's not far-fetched. Last year, they were a win in New York at the end of the season away from finishing 3rd. They finished last year with 50 points. It's not far-fetched that they can add another 5 points to their total points at the end of this season.
How you like me now? Everyone predicted us to finish outside the Eastern Conference. I was the only one who had my Philadelphia Union finishing in the top 3 of the Eastern Conference. How y'all like me now? And I got this one accurate as well. And the reason why I thought the Union were going to have a good season was because this was a team that was bringing back a huge core back to this season. Not only that, this team did bolster the roster in last winter, bringing in guys like Marco Fabian, like Kai Wagner. And then you got surprises like Kasper Shibilko. Jack Elliott took another step in his game. Brandon Aronson legit came out of nowhere from our youth system to become the Rookie of the Year in the MLS. This year, they had a better season than last season. They were in first place for pretty much the entire season until the end. And to be honest with you, they weren't a gimmick. They weren't just, a run-in-the-mill team that had a couple lucky results. No, guys, we beat Atlanta United. We beat the Red Bull. We beat Toronto. We put down DC United. Throughout the season, we looked like a much better quality team. This was a team that we have never, ever seen in Philadelphia.
Obviously, the addition of Marco Fabian is going to be huge. He's going to add a different dimension to the Union. With his awareness and vision on the pitch, he's going to improve everyone around him.
Now, obviously, in the beginning of the season, we were excited for the signing of Marco Fabian. This was an legit DP that we were bringing to Philadelphia. A well-known Mexican player who came over from Europe. It seemed like we didn't care what was going to happen in the season. We finally got a DP that we could get behind. Now, unfortunately, this season, as much as I wanted it to work out, it just seems like it really didn't. Marco really didn't seem like he meshed well with the team. He wasn't the number 10 we were looking for. He's more of the attacking type of number 10. We were looking more of a Borek Dochkal, a guy who can distribute the ball, make crisp passes, but that just wasn't Marco Fabian. He only had 3 goals a season and 0 assists. For a guy we brought in to be our distributor number 10, that's not what we're looking for. Injuries, again, has hampered him throughout his career, but especially this year in Philadelphia. We will see what happens in the playoffs. I'm not saying that he cannot have a big impact in the playoffs for us, but this year, with the Marco Fabian experiment, to be quite frank with you, on the field was a failure. Off the field, it was a success. And that's the difference, guys.
And don't sleep on Sergio Santos Gomes. This is a guy coming from the Chilean league who is able to score down there. I believe he will come into the MLS and make a name for himself.
The jury's still out with Sergio Santos Gomes. He had flashes this season that he could be an explosive forward in the MLS. However, injuries and fitness have been an issue with Sergio Santos Gomes. I've been very critical of SSG throughout this season. But in the end of this season, Jim Kirchin definitely saw something in Sergio Santos Gomes. He proved himself throughout training, and he proved himself with his play on the field for him to get some more minutes, despite the Union signing a legit forward like Andrew Wooten, who came over from Bundesliga 2. I expect Sergio Santos Gomes to continue growing, and I expect him to have a big season next year.
In second place again, I see... Man, I really gotta say this. I still see New York Red Bull in second place this year. The New York Red Bulls have a system in place that works, in all honesty. Works enough to win Supporter Shield. We'll see what happens in the playoffs.
I'm so glad I was so wrong about this pick. Now with the Red Bull, it was just the fact that, it's the Red Bull. The past couple seasons, they've lost players and they've been able to replace them with guys from their youth system. And they honestly have a system up there that has been working. But this year, it wasn't a Red Bull team we were used to. The high press was not working for them like it has in years past. They switched over to a 4-2-3-1 that still implements a little high press, but more emphasis on possession. And this team was a mediocre team throughout the year, to be honest with you. They finished 6th this year, and to be honest with you, that's the team that they were this year, a 6th place team.
Obviously, the loss of Tyler Adams will be huge.
So obviously one of the main questions heading into this season for the New York Red Bull was how they would replace Tyler Adams, who went off to go to Europe to play with RB Leipzig. And to be quite honest with you, really was tough for them to place him. They used Sean Davis and Christian Yeppe. They certainly missed the tenacity and the way that Tyler Adams just absolutely dominated the midfield in the MLS. We'll see what they do going into the winter, but I definitely think they need to still find the replacement for Tyler Adams, in my honest opinion there.
There's drama with Kaku. We will see how that works out throughout the season.
Now with Kaku, obviously there was the whole drama going into the season with him wanting to leave, and quite honest with you, I expect him to be gone next season. We'll see what happens. It really wasn't the season we expected from Kaku. It was one of the reasons why the Red Bull were just so mediocre. Now, Kaku only had 3 goals with 2 assists this season. That's not what we are used to with Kaku. And obviously that bad suspension that we saw him get early in the season, kicked the ball into the stands and hit a fan in the head. That was definitely a bad black eye for Kaku. Certainly has been murky waters when it comes to the Kaku situation. One of the main issues for the New York Red Bull is the decline of BWP, Bradley Wright Phillips has definitely seen a decline in his performance. He's getting up there in age, and they try to do their best. We're trying to replace his production with different guys like Brian White and Talon Barlow. Those guys are still young. We'll see if they can actually be the replacement for BWP, but that really hindered the New York Red Bull this season that they are used to having in North Jersey. The Red Bull got a tough playoff match against us in the first round. We'll see what happens, but I'm thinking the season's going to end for the Red Bull in the first week this year.
And at number one, no surprise here, it's Atlanta United. They're just running away with the MLS. They are showing us what the standard should be in MLS. I think the main question for Atlanta United this year is there's more pressure now. You guys are the champs. Now there is CONCACAF Champions League. That schedule is excruciating, and that just adds more pressure to you as well.
Now, Atlanta United in the regular season definitely took a step back from what we are used to seeing over the past 2 seasons. It wasn't the typical dominant Atlanta United team that we've seen the past 2 seasons, but it still was a very good team.
Atlanta United is also going into this season with a new manager. Tata Martino is now the manager of the Mexico national team, and in comes Frank de Boer, a European coach who's coming over to a new league and hoping he can create the same success with Atlanta United that Tata Martino did. So for me, I will be looking at how Frank de Boer handles this talented club.
Obviously, the transition from going from Tata Martino to Frank de Boer was a little difficult for this team. They had their bumps and bruises early on in the season trying to accumulate to each other. But in the end, these guys finally got it together, and Atlanta United finished second in the Eastern Conference. Same place where they finished last season.
Obviously winning the MLS Cup last season, we all know Miguel Almiron is no longer with Atlanta United as he made the big move over to Newcastle.
Now, the other issue with Atlanta United this season was trying to replace Miguel Almiron. As we all know, right before the season, he left to go to Newcastle in the Premier League. And to replace him, who else but the South American Player of the Year, Pity Martinez.
But in comes in probably an upgrade, and that's the South American Player of the Year, Pity Martinez. He will play with already Joseph Martinez and Ezequiel Barcos,
who's also had a tough time trying to adjust to the MLS. A lot of times players come here and they like to think that just because it's America, it's going to be easy. But things are changing in the MLS. The quality is getting better, and Pity Martinez definitely realized that. So you can add the fact that Atlanta United had to get accumulated to Frank de Boer's system. Pity Martinez, who was going to be a critical part of this team, also had to get accumulated with the game, resulted in Atlanta United not having the typical Atlanta United season that we are all used to. However, Atlanta being Atlanta still walked away with not 1 but 2 trophies before the playoffs even started. Man, they've gotten so lucky down there. They won the Campeones Cup against Club America early in the summer, and to end the summer off, they won their first ever U.S. Open Cup, something we have been trying to win here in Philly for so long. But they beat Minnesota United to win their first ever U.S. Open Cup. Things are looking up for Atlanta United. We'll see what they do in the playoffs. They could put together the same performance we saw last season. Kudos to Atlanta.
But honestly, I expect Atlanta United to repeat this year.
The Eastern Conference this season was as tight as any season we have seen. We saw DC United, Atlanta United, Philadelphia Union, and NYCFC sit in first place. To be quite honest with you guys, with all these top teams in the Eastern Conference, there's not much fall off in their level. Now that we got the Eastern Conference playoffs right here, it's time to see what the Eastern Conference can do here. It'll be as entertaining as it was in the regular season. We shall see. I got the preview video for the playoffs coming out very shortly, and the Western Conference season preview look back as well. So stay tuned for all that, guys. But thank you so much for tuning in here, guys. I appreciate you guys checking it out. I want to hear from you, though. In the comments below, let me know what you guys thought. Were your predictions a little off as well like mine, or were they completely off? Just let me know in the comments below. We need to hear y'all's opinion. And of course, guys, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. We're trying to grow this channel. And guys, we're only 4 subscribers away to our goal of 100 subscribers. And honestly, I only have you guys to thank. But please, we are still growing this channel. Help me grow here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button for notifications, and share this video as well as this channel. But until next time, my DOOP battles, DOOP on.